Alright guys, let's talk about Seamless Classic Edition. Now, Seamless Classic Edition is the last release of the action set before the V1 panel comes out. What that basically means for you is that you can basically get this at a really, really low price of just $6.99. That is basically like a kind of going away sale since I won't be updating the actions anymore. You will get continuous support for them, but they just won't be updated. So I'm basically going to put all my time and effort into the V1 panel just for your benefit. Now let's actually get into the meat of the Classic Edition. So this edition is for CC 2015 and up. Anything below that, like CC 2014 or CS6, will not be compatible. And the reason why is because CC 2015 and up utilizes Photoshop's built-in select and mask panel. So if you have CC 2014 or CS6, that uses Refine Edge. And both of them are very much similar, but they are coded differently. So keep that in mind. This release is from 15 May 2018. I know it's actually the 14th of May, but I always put the release date one day ahead, just for my benefit, just to keep things organized. So we have 4 actions here. 1A, flatten image, all-in-one sky replacement workflow, and 1B, merge visible, all-in-one sky replacement workflow. What does that mean exactly? Well, flatten image is basically for your single exposure images, or your single frame kind of exterior shots, your background layers, while merge visible is for your multiple layered documents that you want to keep intact. It'll merge everything to a new layer, call it merge, and leave all of this untouched. It'll just build off this. So that's useful if you want to keep everything intact, everything in order, and everything untouched. Let's delete that. So let's get into the optional actions. Refine extraction masks. What does that mean? Basically, after you've done all of your selecting, refining, and placing, you will have the option to go back and refine the extraction masks if you messed up the process, or if you didn't get everything selected and things like that. Or if you just want something, the edges just a little bit crisper, a little bit nicer, you can use the optional refine extraction masks action. Let's move on. 2B, optional replace sky overlay. This is super useful if you don't want to go back and redo the all-in-one steps and just want to be able to replace the sky and have all your refinements done, everything like that, all of everything just there and ready to basically just be replaced. So super useful to have. These actions I use constantly because I'm constantly messing up and picking the wrong thing and screwing up my masks. So let's go with 1A, flatten image, because I just have one layer open in my document. Let's go ahead and press play and click. So you're going to be hit with a wall of words, and basically it all boils down to select the sky. So let's read through this just so we have this out of the way. Objective. Using the magic wand tool, Shift plus W, make a general selection of the sky. Recommended magic wand settings are as followed. Selected, add to selection, sample size, point sample, tolerance, 32, checked, anti-aliasing, checked, contiguous, unchecked, sample all layers. This is basically the default settings, but I find them to be the most handy. Tips: uncheck contiguous for images with a plethora of trees. So if you ever have an image that has a ton of trees and just a ton of detail that you want to get, you're going to want to uncheck contiguous. And I'll explain that in a minute. Be sure to use the quick mask selection. Be sure to use the quick selection tool to set. Be sure to use the quick selection tool set to subtract from selection to remove unwanted selections. Alternatively, use the quick mask tool, Q, and the brush tool, B, set to 100% hardness to brush away unwanted selections. Be sure to exit quick mask before proceeding to the next step. Alright, let's go ahead and click stop. And we want to minimize our actions panel just by clicking on the little play button. And we are greeted with the quick selection tool, not what we want. We want the magic wand tool. Or you can just hit Shift plus W. That's going to get me to the quick selection tool. Do it again, magic wand tool. Super useful shortcuts. We want to set up our settings correctly. And what we're going to do is we're going to switch it from new selection to add to selection. Sample size will be point sample, or anything in between 11 by 11 average and point sample. These will generally be your go-to settings. Anything above that, and I find that it gets a little bit crazy. Tolerance, anywhere between 16 and 64 will be good. 16 I generally use for your simple skies like this, while 64 or 32 is for your more complex areas that need a little bit more help. Anti-aliasing turned on by default. So contiguous, turn that on, and we select an area. It's only going to select that one spot. So if there's something obstructing the areas like these little patches in the trees, it's not going to select that because it's only going after that one area that you clicked. It's not going to select anything else. So if we uncheck this and we select it, it's going to select areas of the same color and same brightness. Super, super useful if you ever have to do anything with a ton of trees. Just be careful with this step or with this this little feature, because you can easily go overboard and select you can select the entire sky while also selecting the entire foreground if the colors and brightness are the same. That's not going to be good for a number of reasons. You're going to have a tough time refining the mask and getting it all sorted out and perfect. So I would just keep it checked on, and kind of basically my workflow is this. I switch to a lower tolerance, and I get these little areas first. See how it's getting all these little areas and such? Now, that's perfect for getting all these little itty bitty spots. But if I have everything pretty much selected that I need in those little itty bitty spots, I can uncheck contiguous and just go from there. Just like that. Perfect. So everything is selected that needs to be selected while not spilling over too much into the foreground like it is right here. So let's go ahead and go to our quick selection tool, our quick selection tool, hitting Shift plus W. And let's go ahead and make sure we are set to, set to subtract from selection. Sample all layers is turned off. Auto enhance is turned off as well. And let's go ahead and adjust this. And I'm going to take my pen here real quick and just brush those areas that we want to get rid of. Pretty simple stuff. Super useful. Alternatively, we can use our quick mask option. Use a brush, set to 100% hardness, mode normal, opacity 100%, flow 100%, and smoothing, if you have smoothing in your version, set to 0. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you have smoothing set to anything other than 0. Let's go ahead and just brush that. And let's go ahead and look for these other areas. We have a little bit that we missed here because our tolerance was set pretty low. That's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and fix that. And back to here. I'm going to go ahead and switch that to 16 just so I can get those areas nice and snazzy. Perfect. Beautiful. It's looking good. And that's looking weird. That looks weird. Alright, there we go. That looks pretty good so far. I know I missed an area. Yeah, there it is. And we have some areas selected right here. Let's go ahead and press Q. And we have a really interesting roof line here going on. In that it's also being selected because it's the same color and luminance as the sky. Let's go ahead and go to the brush tool. Scale that down by hitting Control Option and moving the brush side to side or up and down to change the hardness. Alternatively, you can use the bracket keys and your little, I don't know what this is called, like brush panel. And we're going to go ahead and select, Shift, click an area, and click another area to draw a straight line. Let's do that again. So if we ever want to draw a straight line, go to the brush tool, hold down Shift, click, and draw a straight line. Super, super handy for getting those tough roof lines. And that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and get out of quick mask because that is a very important step. We don't want to move on until we've gotten out of quick mask. If we don't do that, it's going to break the sequence. Without touching any of these steps, press play. Alright, using the Refine Edge Brush tool, shortcut key R, refine any rough selections. This will generally be areas around trees. This is quite possibly the most important step in the sky replacement process. Please don't rush. Also, change the view mode to on black for better visibility. Let's go ahead and hit continue. This will basically bring you into your selected mask panel. Now, if we go to black and white, you can see we have some areas that we need to fix. That's looking bad. This is looking pretty bad as well. But over here is looking really good. And as you can see, Seamless has done a lot of the refining for us, which is super cool. So it's not going to be really rough or jagged or anything like that when you get into the Select and Mask panel. So let's go change the view mode. Up here, view mode, view. Excuse me. We have several options here. Onion skin. Not exactly something I use, but you can change the opacity here. It's just going to show you the layer underneath it, that being the solid foreground layer, solid sky layer. Sorry about that. And we have marching ants, pretty much useless for this part. Overlay, really useful, although I don't use it quite often. On black is what I use the most because it's a lot easier to see the areas that are not selected and the areas that are selected. On white, useless. Black and white, very nice for patching things up with the brush tool. On layers, pretty much kind of the same as onion skin, just without the ability to adjust opacity. Let's go ahead and go to on black. Go minimize that. Don't mess with any of these things right here. Edge detection, We've already done that in the process. Global refinements, pretty much useless in this workflow. Output settings. Output to selection is always selected. If it's not, then something's going wrong. Decontaminate colors, uncheck that. You don't want that at this point. Let's go ahead and go to the Refine Edge Brush tool, which is over here on the left. You can just hit R, and that'll bring up the Refine Edge Brush. Let's go ahead and refine this by just brushing and getting all that nice detail in. I'm using a really small brush because if we use a bigger brush, it's going to want to select more of the sky, and that's not what we want. And let's go ahead and go over here. Just like so. There we go. Just get around these edges. Perfect. Almost perfect. That's really tough. Getting these little itty bitty bits. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And I missed a spot here and here. All right, that's looking weird. Let's move on to this tree. And we'll just refine that area over here. It's weird. Big clusters of branches and stuff like that generally are the easiest things to refine. It's just those little itty bitty spots around not solid edges, straight edges. Those are the tough parts. Getting trees like this, super easy. Let's go ahead and move on to here. And over here, let's kind of go pretty fast here. Selected mask is generally pretty slow on any type of computer, so if you're working with a really slow computer to start with, this will be hell for you. Sorry about that. I'm working on a MacBook Pro, pretty baseline model, so keep that knowledge with you, or something like that. Let's go over here, and I can go through this really quickly just by using the pen and kind of just brushing over pretty much everything. But I want to get it perfect. It's always about getting the perfect sky replacement for me. I don't want to rush things. I don't want to go through this super sloppily, because it's just going to look really bad in the end. And I think that's looking good. There's one area that I missed, and that's, oof, that looks bad. Let's fix that. Just like that. What am I at? 100%? Let's go ahead and go to like 70. Just like that. Get that area. We used our little trick there. Let's go ahead and zoom into that. There we go. That's looking really good. And press OK once you're done. Alright, select and place a sky overlay from your own personal sky library. Tips: line up the horizons for both the foreground and sky overlay to create a more believable sky replacement. Also be sure to select a sky that matches the overall tone in the original image. This will make the sky replacement appear more natural. Don't worry about the rough edges at this point in the process. These will be fixed automatically. So, let's go ahead and continue and select a cool sky. I'm gonna select something really crazy, like 54. I like 54. 54 is nice. And zoom out, and I'm gonna put this in the middle. Scale it up, and drag it so the horizons line up in both these images. So if we're done, hit return on your keyboard or enter, or just hit the check mark, and that will move on to the next process. Let it load. There we go. That's looking great. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Look at that. That's amazing. Oop. We got some areas that we need to fix. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I actually knew that was coming up. That's because the color decontaminate layer is too much. Look at that. Look at that. That's looking good. Missed some areas right here, but that's not too big of an issue. That's looking snazzy. I kind of missed an area right there. Missed an area over here. But everything is looking really good. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And we are done with the flattened image or all-in-one workflow action. So let's go ahead and run through these layers real quick. Sky, solid, color fill. Don't need to touch this. It's pretty important. Without it, you kind of get things looking not right. So if I turn it off, see how the sky is like really dark? It's because our base sky layer is on multiply. If we had it in normal, it wouldn't be too much an issue. But since it's on multiply, it will blend in with the original sky. We don't want that. Let's go ahead and turn that back on. Foreground edge protection. This basically means it will use a very general mask and then use blend if to remove, I think it's blue? No, it's gray. To remove gray from the layer. So basically that's kind of like using the blend if method to replace the sky, but it's only doing it for a single aspect of the workflow. Without it, with it, I find that with it is a little bit too much. Go ahead and change that to 45%. You never want to turn off the layers or turn off the visibility of the layers. Just adjust the opacity to whatever you find reasonable, and then you'll be really good. Foreground color decontaminate. Pretty easy thing to understand is that it is basically your color decontamination. Basically going to layer, matting, color decontaminate, set to 100%, and it's a little bit much on this image, so we're going to bring it down to around 45 as well. And I still have some areas right here, so let's go ahead and hit Alter Option on the, what's it called, layer mask. Go to Command L or Control L on Windows and bring the black point in a little bit. So it's just a little bit, there we go. So like 30. That's looking good. And we basically solved that issue. Looking good, looking good, looking good. All right. Snazzy. All right, cool. I think actually the effect is too little. So I'm going to go back to 75%. There we go. Yeah. Foreground base is what your whole entire thing is based off of. It is the one layer that you don't want to adjust the opacity on, because if you do, it's going to look like that. It's going to look pretty bad. So keep that in mind. Color fringe removal of the foreground layer. This basically means removing blues, cyans, and magentas from the edges of your image. So if I went to here and I adjusted the opacity down to 0, you see how there's bits of blue and magenta in this? Like right here you can see the magenta. This basically will go into that area and clean that up. And you can adjust the opacity of it. I'm going to leave it at 100%. And that's looking pretty good. Base sky. You can adjust the opacity of this if you think the effect of the sky is too strong. I generally keep mine at 100% because I like my skies to be nice and crisp and clean. Sky natural haze, adjust opacity. This is cool. This is kind of where people tend to not do things correctly with their own sky replacements. They forget to add some form of gradient to the sky, because without it, it will look like the whole sky is just one solid piece. I don't know if that explained it very well, but let's turn it off. You see how it's very dark from the bottom to the top? That's not how a sky should look. It has, in nature, skies will have a nice gradient of, haze or pollution to them. So we want to add that in ourselves. If you ever want to lessen the effect, you can have the blend mode set to soft light, or you can leave it at normal and just adjust the opacity according to what the image looks like. So for twilights, I generally go with like 45%. Sky reflections, adjust transformation. This is for your for basically reflecting into pools and stuff like that. If we go ahead and turn off all these layers real quick, and just like that. And actually, let me go ahead and do that real quick. Turn off that. You can see that it's only there we go. It will be flipped. Sometimes it may need a minor adjustment to kind of scale it down to where you need it to be, just like that. And it's only targeting your highlights. So if we look at the mask, only targeting the highlights and none of the sky. If you blend in multiply in a darker area, it's just going to get darker. You don't want that. So let's go ahead and turn these layers back on. Let's go ahead and turn that back on. Turn these layers on. And yeah, turn that back off. Okay. Sky reflections paint mask. This is where you can go ahead and paint in your sky reflections. So if I wanted to, paint it in here, I can do that. So just do that. I forgot to do something. I will fix this before release. I forgot to uncheck this little chain, because without that, I think, whoops, it will be really weird in that the sky will be transformed all funky. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I will fix that before release. You see how the overlay, or not the overlay, the mask changed positioning? You don't want that. So I will fix that before release, so whenever you go to transform these, it will move to the correct spot without moving the mask. So my flub right there. Moving on to these layers, the mask layers. If you ever mess up a mask, you can go to the corresponding mask with the layer and select, let's say I messed up the base layer. I messed it up. I flubbed it. I put too much of that into it. So I did that. We can go ahead and delete that layer just by dragging it to the bin and delete. And we can go to our user refined sky extraction mask for the base and apply it again. So very useful thing to have. Rough sky and auto refined sky extraction, something you generally won't use unless you know kind of what they do. Basically everything above that is what corresponds to each of the layers. So user refined sky extraction will be for your foreground base. Color decontaminate will be for color decontaminate. Edge protection will be for edge protection. Color fringe will be for color fringe. Sky overlay will be for your sky base. Simple stuff. Let's move on to our optional actions. So let's go ahead and press play on optional refine extraction mask because I did miss some areas. Let's go ahead and press play. And using the refine edge brush tool, R, refine any rough selections. This will generally be areas around trees. So pretty much the same prompt that we've been used to. Let's go ahead and do that. Switch it to, I'm gonna switch it to on layers real quick. Just like, actually that's not gonna be helpful. On black is probably best. That's looking good, that's looking good. Where did I miss? Oh yeah, down here. Let's actually bring that up. Yeah, there we go. If I bring up the opacity on that overlay, it's a lot easier to see. So right there, I missed. Over here I missed. Missed over here. Missed a lot of areas. Just over here. Over here, in there. Oops, right there. I'm just trying to get it really perfect. You don't have to get it like super perfect, especially if you're doing sky replacements for MLS. You just don't want to be spending time refining all these areas for something that's going to be noticed like not at all. So just be smart with it. If you're doing something for like architectural work, take your time. Let's go ahead and get over here and here. Wow, I missed a lot. That's crazy. I usually don't miss that many stuff. That many stuff. Wow, good English, Hunter. Oh god, it's too early. Too early in the morning. Alright, that's looking good. Man, I missed a lot. These areas around the edges are really tough to get. So I'll show you a little trick to get those. Get those selected when you have the sky overlay on it. There we go. And that's good enough. Let's go ahead and press OK. Bam! There we go. That's looking good. You can see all of that refinement definitely shows. It's looking really snazzy. I like it. I like it a lot. You will need to fix the color decontaminate layer if you've adjusted it previously. So if you did that levels trick and made it like 45, I don't know why I go to 45 so often, but if you do that, you'll need to do it again. It's just kind of how it is. Zoom out. Everything else is pretty much the same. We got our masks and everything right here. Replace sky overlay. This is actually really cool. Let's say I didn't like the sky, because I don't like the sky right now. It doesn't match the tone of the image. We have blue tones here. We have a lot of reds and pinks and oranges going on. It just doesn't fit. Let's go ahead and press play and select and place the sky overlay from your personal sky library. We've seen this prompt. We don't have to go through it again. Continue. I'm going to choose something blue. Something really, really nice and blue. Like, ooh, that's looking cool. Just like that. So we see that it looks really nice. We just need to adjust it in terms of transformation. So holding down Shift and Alt option will allow you to scale without adjusting aspect ratio. Perfect. And I think that's looking really good. Click check or OK. And that's looking good. And if you can see this, let me actually turn these off. If you can see this, wow, I'm super off. What is this called? Sky overlay for the reflections has been updated. So that's super, super cool. It's because these layers are connected. in terms of being, smart objects and stuff like that. So that's really cool. No need to actually, change this one, go into this one right here, the reflections layer, and find the same exact sky and kind of place it in, where it should be. It's all done for you. Let's go ahead and turn these on and off. Just like that. Turn that off. Turn that off. Okay, cool. That's pretty much it for that. Don't delete any of these layers. If you do, it'll break the sequence. Don't turn any of these layers off. It'll also break the sequence. Just adjust opacity if you ever want to remove or kind of lessen the effect of some layers. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's essentially it. I will get that one chain link fixed before I release this, and if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can find me on Facebook. It's just Hunter Loma Esfa. Same way it's spelled on my channel. Just type that into Facebook. I'll be the one with just a black and white image on my profile. That's pretty much it. I have a Facebook page. It's called Seamless. You can find it at facebook.com/Seamless extension panel. I believe that's the URL. I also have a group that's Seamless parentheses group. That's pretty much where you will find support. So there's a lot of members there. You just pose a question in there and you will get support from either me or someone else in the group who knows what they're doing. So with that being said, that's pretty much it. Take care, guys.